My dad said, "It's too chaotic this year, let's skip you coming." I said okay. Then I saw a video on Facebook, my brother's ex, and even the neighbor's teenage girls. All at the table. My kids cried. So, I took a picture of every unwrapped gift and texted, "Returning these today." Within 30 minutes, my mom was at my door, yelling. I opened it and... Look, I need to tell someone about what happened last Christmas, because I'm still losing sleep over it and my therapist says writing it down might help. Fair warning though, this gets dark fast, and by the end, you're going to understand why I haven't spoken to my family in 10 months. My dad called me 3 days before Christmas. Just like that, casual as ordering coffee. "Hey sweetie, it's too chaotic this year with all the construction and your mom's hip surgery recovery. Let's skip you coming this year, okay?" I said okay. Like an idiot, I said okay. See, that's the thing about being the family peacekeeper, you swallow everything with a smile, even when it tastes like broken glass going down. My 2 kids, Emma and Jake, 8 and 6, had been counting days on their advent calendar, practicing Christmas songs, asking every 5 minutes if we could call Grandma yet to confirm what time dinner would be. But I'm their mom, so I painted on my brightest voice and told them Grandma and Grandpa needed a quiet Christmas this year because of Grandma's surgery. Emma, my oldest, tilted her head with that serious expression she gets. "But Mom, didn't Grandma's surgery happen in October?" Smart kid. Too smart. "Yes, honey, but she's still recovering." The lie sat heavy in my chest, but what else could I do? Tell them the truth, that apparently our family of 3 wasn't worth the chaos but somehow everyone else was still invited? Christmas Eve, I was scrolling Facebook while the kids watched the Polar Express for the 4th time. That's when I saw it. A video post from my brother's ex-girlfriend, Melissa. She's been broken up with Ryan for 2 years, but apparently that didn't stop her from being at my parents' dining room table, raising a glass of eggnog to the camera. "Merry Christmas from the Johnson family dinner," she giggled into her phone. The video panned across the table. There was Ryan, my brother, grinning like nothing had changed. My parents, looking healthier and happier than they had in months. My Aunt Carol and Uncle Jim. The neighbor's teenage daughters, Sarah and Madison, who barely knew our family but somehow made the cut for this too chaotic gathering. My hands started shaking. The phone felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds. "Mom?" Jake had paused the movie and was staring at me. "Are you crying?" I wasn't crying. I was something beyond crying. I was that moment in horror movies when the main character realizes the call is coming from inside the house, except the betrayal was coming from inside my own family. "I'm fine, baby. Just tired." But I wasn't fine. I was calculating. See, I'd spent the last 2 weeks carefully selecting and wrapping presents for everyone. Beautiful, thoughtful gifts that I'd saved up for months to afford. Mom's favorite perfume that costs more than my grocery budget. Dad's special edition book he'd been wanting. Gifts for Ryan, for Melissa even though I didn't particularly like her, for my aunt and uncle. Even gifts for those neighbor girls, because I'd assumed they'd be there if we were all gathering. All sitting under my tree, wrapped in expensive paper with handwritten tags. I took pictures. Every single gift. Methodical, precise photos from multiple angles, like I was documenting evidence for a crime scene. Because that's what this felt like, a crime against my children's hearts. Then I typed out a text message to the family group chat, saw the Facebook video. Interesting definition of too chaotic. Returning all your gifts today. Don't worry about explaining to the kids, I'll handle that conversation too. Send. The response was immediate and vicious. My phone started buzzing like it was having a seizure. Ryan first, come on, don't be dramatic. Then Dad, you're overreacting. Melissa, somehow still in the family chat despite being Ryan's ex, it wasn't planned, I just stopped by. But it was Mom's response that made my blood turn to ice water, you're being selfish. This is exactly why we didn't invite you. Selfish. For being hurt that my children and I were excluded from Christmas while literal strangers sat at our family table. There it was. The truth finally. Not too chaotic. Not construction stress. Not Mom's recovery. Just the simple fact that they didn't want us there, and when I dared to have feelings about it, I became the villain in their story. I turned off my phone and spent Christmas morning making pancakes shaped like reindeer, playing board games, and pretending my heart wasn't splintered into 1,000 pieces every time the kids asked if we could call Grandma to say Merry Christmas. Maybe later, sweethearts. Let's just have our own special day. But inside, I was planning. Oh, I was planning. The next morning, I meant what I'd said. I loaded up every single gift and drove to the mall. Returns after Christmas are brutal, long lines, cranky employees, and that particular brand of post-holiday depression hanging in the air like stale perfume. But I stood in those lines, item by item, converting thoughtfulness back into store credit. The cashier at Macy's looked at the expensive perfume, still in its gift bag with tissue paper. Change of heart? She asked. Something like that. Each return felt like pulling a splinter from my soul. The book Dad had mentioned wanting, gone. The sweater I'd picked out specifically for Mom's coloring, returned. The thoughtful little gifts for everyone who'd sat at that table while my children wondered why they weren't good enough to join. I was in line at Barnes & Noble, Dad's book in my hands, when my phone started ringing. Mom. I let it go to voicemail. She called again. And again. By the fourth call, people in line were giving me annoyed looks, so I answered. What? How dare you? Her voice was shaking with rage. How dare you embarrass this family with your tantrum? Do you have any idea how this makes us look? I'm sorry, how does this make you look bad? I'm the one who got excluded from Christmas. You're being impossible. It was a last-minute thing, people just started showing up. Melissa lives 40 minutes away, Mom. She didn't just show up with a casserole. And the neighbor girls? Really? They just happened to wander over for Christmas dinner? They're going through a hard time with their parents' divorce, and my kids aren't going through a hard time missing their grandparents' Christmas for no reason? The silence stretched out. I could hear her breathing, calculating her next move. This was the chess match we'd been playing my whole life, her making power moves, me pretending not to notice I was being sacrificed. Your father and I decided it would be too stressful with the construction. What construction? You installed a new bathroom in October. What construction? Another pause. Longer this time. Behind me in line, someone sighed dramatically. The house is just. It's not ready for entertaining. But it was ready for 8 other people? That's different. How is it different? And that's when she said the thing that changed everything between us forever. Because they don't cause problems like you do. Problems. I cause problems. Apparently, existing as her daughter and wanting my children to feel included in their own family was causing problems. What problems do I cause, exactly? My voice was getting dangerously quiet now, that calm before the storm that anyone who knew me would recognize as a warning. You know what problems. You're always so sensitive about everything, always taking things personally, always making drama out of nothing. I'm making drama? I quietly accepted being excluded from Christmas. I didn't call screaming, I didn't show up uninvited, I didn't post passive-aggressive Facebook statuses. I took pictures of gifts and said I was returning them. That's drama? The way you said it was manipulative? The way I said what? The truth? More silence. I could practically hear the wheels turning in her head, searching for the next manipulation tactic. Look, she said finally, switching to her sweet, reasonable voice, why don't you come over tonight? We can talk about this face to face. The kids can see their presence. There it was. The bait. Come crawling back, let them pretend this was all a misunderstanding, smile and nod while they gaslight me into believing I was the problem. Accept the leftover affection, the scraps of inclusion. No thanks. I'm busy returning all these gifts I bought for people who were too stressed to include my children in Christmas. I hung up and turned off my phone again. But I should have known Mom wouldn't let it end there. She never did. That evening, around 6 o'clock, someone started pounding on my front door. Not knocking, pounding. Like the house was on fire and they were trying to save us. The kids ran to me, eyes wide with fear. Mom, who's that? Why are they hitting our doors so hard? I looked through the peephole. Mom. Her face red with fury, her hair disheveled, and she was holding what looked like a hastily wrapped gift bag. She looked unhinged in a way I'd never seen before, like she'd driven over here in a rage and was just now realizing she needed some kind of plan. I opened the door, and honestly, the woman standing on my porch wasn't the mother who'd raised me. This was someone else entirely, someone whose mask had finally slipped completely off. How could you do this to us? She screamed, loud enough for the whole neighborhood to hear. How could you ruin Christmas over your hurt feelings? I didn't ruin anything. I just chose not to participate in being treated like garbage. We tried to include you. When? When exactly did you try to include us? She thrust the gift bag at me like it was evidence in her defense. Here. This was for the kids. Are you happy now? Are you happy you made your children miss Christmas? I took the bag and looked inside. 2 gas station gift cards, still in the plastic sleeves with the price tags attached. $5 each. Not even wrapped. Just loose in the bag with some crumpled tissue paper thrown on top. Something cold and sharp crystallized in my chest. This woman had spent weeks planning a Christmas dinner that included everyone but us, then grabbed 2 gift cards at a Shell station on the way over to make herself feel better about it. You know what's funny? I said, and I could hear my voice getting dangerously calm. The kids handled not seeing you at Christmas just fine. They made crafts, we watched movies, we had a great day. But seeing them hurt when I explained why Grandma didn't want them there? That's going to stick with them forever. Don't you dare twist this. I'm not twisting anything. You made a choice. You chose to exclude your grandchildren from Christmas, then got angry when I didn't pretend to be grateful for it. She stared at me for a long moment, and I watched something shift in her face. The fake concern melted away, replaced by something colder. Something that looked almost predatory. You were always too sensitive, she said quietly, her voice dripping with disgust. Even as a child. Always making everything about yourself, always crying over nothing. Maybe this is better. Maybe the family is more peaceful without all your drama. There it was. The truth, finally. Not too chaotic. Not construction stress. Not last-minute changes. Just the simple fact that she preferred Christmas without me and my children in it. That she'd rather have strangers at her table than deal with my sensitivity. Thank you, I said. She blinked, caught off guard. What? Thank you for being honest. That's all I ever wanted. I started to close the door, but she shoved her foot in the way. You don't get to just walk away from this, she hissed. You don't get to destroy this family and then act like you're the victim. I'm not destroying anything. I'm protecting my children from people who don't value them. Those kids need their family. They have family. They have me. And we're better off without people who see us as problems to be managed instead of people to be loved. That's when she really lost it. Started screaming about how ungrateful I was, how I'd always been difficult, how she'd sacrificed so much for me and this was how I repaid her. The neighbors were starting to come out of their houses now, drawn by the commotion. But here's the thing about finally seeing someone clearly, once you see them, you can't unsee them. And standing there, watching my mother have a complete meltdown on my front porch because I wouldn't accept being treated badly, I finally saw her for what she really was. A bully. A manipulator. Someone who'd spent my entire life training me to accept less than I deserved, to be grateful for scraps, to apologize for having needs. I think you should leave, I said calmly. You can't just cut off your family. Watch me. I closed the door. Gently this time, not a slam. Just a quiet, final click. She stood on my porch for another 20 minutes, alternating between pounding and ringing the doorbell. The kids hid in their rooms while I sat on the couch, hands folded, waiting for her to give up. When she finally left, her tires screeched as she pulled out of my driveway. I never opened that pathetic gift bag again. It's still sitting in my junk drawer, those insulting $5 gift cards a perfect monument to how little my children meant to her. The hardest part wasn't dealing with Mom's tantrum. It was explaining to Emma and Jake why Grandma was screaming on our front porch. How do you tell small children that sometimes people who are supposed to love you unconditionally just don't? That sometimes the people who gave you life decide you're not worth keeping in theirs? I went with a version of the truth. Grandma is going through some grown-up problems right now, and she's not handling them very well. It's not about you, and it's not your fault. Emma, wise beyond her years, nodded solemnly. Like when kids have tantrums but they're adults? Exactly like that. Jake, my little optimist, asked if we could send Grandma a card to help her feel better. That nearly broke me in half. Maybe someday, buddy. Maybe someday. But even as I said it, I knew someday wasn't coming. Not unless something fundamental changed, and people like my mother don't change. They just find new ways to make their dysfunction everyone else's problem. The family tried a few more times to make contact. Dad called once, offering some weak apology about miscommunications and inviting us to a make-up dinner. His voice was tired, defeated, like he knew he was reading from a script Mom had written but didn't have the energy to fight her anymore. Ryan sent a few guilt-trip texts about how I was destroying the family over a simple misunderstanding. Apparently, systematically excluding your sister and her children from Christmas is just a simple misunderstanding now. Who knew? My Aunt Carol, who'd been sitting right there at that table, sent a long Facebook message about how everyone missed us and couldn't understand why I was holding grudges. The cognitive dissonance was stunning. They missed us so much they didn't invite us to Christmas, and they couldn't understand why I might have feelings about that. I didn't respond to any of them. What was the point? They'd shown me exactly where I stood in their priorities, and it wasn't anywhere I wanted to be. But the silence was almost worse than the confrontation. Because silence left room for doubt, for that little voice in my head that had been trained since childhood to blame myself for everything that went wrong. Maybe I was being too sensitive. Maybe I should have just sucked it up and pretended everything was fine. Maybe I was destroying the family over nothing. That's when I started seeing the therapist. Tell me about your normal Christmas growing up, Dr. Martinez said during our third session. I started to describe the magical Christmases of my childhood, but as I talked, the memories shifted. The magic started looking more like performance. The family togetherness started looking more like control. The love started looking more like conditional acceptance based on how well I played my role. How did your parents handle conflict when you were young? She asked. I thought about it. They didn't, really. If someone was upset, they were being dramatic. If someone had a problem, they were being difficult. The solution was always for the upset person to adjust their expectations, not for anyone to change their behavior. And what role did you typically play in family conflicts? The peacekeeper. The one who apologized first, compromised most, accepted less. And what happened when you tried to enforce boundaries or express needs? That stopped me cold. Because I couldn't remember ever trying. I'd been so well trained to be grateful for whatever affection I received, so convinced that asking for more would make me selfish, that I'd never learned to advocate for myself at all. I don't think I ever did, I admit it. So this Christmas situation, when you finally said this isn't okay, that was probably the first time they'd ever encountered boundaries from you. And suddenly, Mom's explosive reaction made perfect sense. I'd been the family's designated emotional punching bag for so long that standing up for myself felt like rebellion. Like betrayal. But here's what Dr. Martinez helped me understand: healthy people don't explode when you set boundaries. Healthy people don't try to guilt you into accepting mistreatment. Healthy people don't see your emotional needs as inconvenient problems to be managed. Healthy people adjust their behavior when they realize they've hurt you. My family's reaction to my pain, anger, defensiveness, more cruelty, told me everything I needed to know about who they really were. The months that followed were the hardest of my life. Not because I missed them, exactly, but because I was grieving the family I thought I had. The parents I believed loved me unconditionally. The brother I thought would always have my back. The extended family I trusted to be safe harbor for my children. All of it had been an illusion. A performance where everyone else knew the script except me. But slowly, something beautiful started to emerge from the ashes of that old family system. Emma and Jake stopped walking on eggshells, stopped analyzing every interaction for signs of disapproval. They started laughing more, sharing more, trusting that their emotional needs wouldn't be seen as burdens. We created new traditions. Christmas morning in pajamas with homemade cinnamon rolls. Movie marathons on rainy weekends. Family game nights where everyone got to pick the activity, and nobody's preferences were dismissed as too chaotic. For the first time in my life, I was parenting without an audience. Without worrying about whether my choices would be criticized, my kids would be compared to their cousins, my parenting style would be found lacking. It was liberating in ways I couldn't have imagined. 3 weeks ago, Emma asked me something that stopped me cold. "Mom, do you think Grandma loves us?" I was folding laundry, doing that mindless domestic task that usually calms me, and suddenly my hands were shaking again. "What makes you ask that, sweetheart?" "Well, if she loves us, why doesn't she want to see us? And if she doesn't love us, why do you look sad sometimes when we talk about her?" Out of the mouths of babes. How do you explain to an 8-year-old that love and loving behavior aren't always the same thing? That someone can claim to love you while consistently choosing to hurt you? I sat down on her bed, pushed the laundry aside, and looked into those serious brown eyes that see way too much for someone so young. "I think Grandma loves the idea of us," I said carefully. "But she doesn't know how to love us the way we deserve to be loved. And that's not about us being unlovable, that's about her not knowing how to love in a healthy way." Emma nodded thoughtfully, processing this with that emotional intelligence that amazes me daily. "So it's like she's broken at loving?" "Yeah, baby. She's broken at loving." Can broken people get fixed? And there's the million-dollar question, isn't it? Can they get fixed? Do they want to get fixed? Does it matter if they get fixed after they've already done so much damage? Sometimes, I told her. But only if they want to fix themselves. And only if they can admit they're broken first. What I didn't tell her was that some people would rather burn down everyone around them than admit they need fixing. Some people would rather be right than be loved. Some people would rather maintain their version of reality than acknowledge the pain they've caused. My mother is one of those people. The last contact I had with any of them was in March. A 2-word text from Mom: "Miss you." Not "I'm sorry." Not "I was wrong." Not "I want to fix this." Just "miss you," as if missing someone absolves you of hurting them. As if longing for someone gives you permission to keep treating them badly. I stared at that text for an hour before deleting it without responding. Because I realized something: she doesn't miss me. She misses having someone to push around. She misses having a scapegoat. She misses the version of me that absorbed all her dysfunction and asked for seconds. That version of me is gone. She killed her with a Facebook video and 2 gas station gift cards. The person I am now, the one who sets boundaries, who chooses her children's emotional safety over family peace, who refuses to accept crumbs and call them a feast, that person is someone my mother has never met. And honestly, I don't think she'd like her very much. But my kids love this version of me. They love the mom who doesn't cry after family phone calls, who doesn't spend hours analyzing what she did wrong this time, who doesn't make excuses for people who hurt us. They love the mom who shows up for them, consistently and unconditionally, without making them compete for attention or affection. That's the mom I choose to be. That's the family I choose to build. Sometimes, late at night when the house is quiet, I still think about that Facebook video. About my mother's face in the background, laughing at something someone said. About how easily she replaced us at that table, how seamlessly Christmas continued without us. And I wonder if she ever thinks about the empty chairs where we should have been. If she ever regrets choosing strangers over her own grandchildren. If she ever misses us at all. Then morning comes, and Emma makes me coffee in her toy kitchen set, and Jake shows me the picture he drew of our family, just the 3 of us, smiling under a Christmas tree, and I remember that some losses are actually wins in disguise. I lost a family that didn't value me. But I gained something infinitely more precious, the knowledge of my own worth, and the determination to never settle for less than I deserve again. The freedom to wake up each morning without wondering what family drama awaits me, without calculating how to manage everyone else's emotions at the expense of my own, without teaching my children that love is conditional and family means tolerating mistreatment. We're building something better now. Something healthier. Something where Christmas is about joy, not performance. Where love is demonstrated through actions, not just claimed through words. Where children learn that they are worthy of respect, consideration, and genuine care. And if my mother ever wants to meet this version of me, if she ever wants to be part of this healthier family we're creating, she knows where to find me. But she also knows what it's going to cost, a real apology, genuine change, and the humility to admit that she was wrong. That she chose to hurt her daughter and grandchildren, and that choice had consequences. Until then, we're just fine on our own. Better than fine, actually. We're free. And that freedom, that peace, that ability to build traditions based on love instead of obligation, that's worth more than all the dysfunctional family Christmases in the world. But here's the thing that still catches me off guard sometimes, I keep waiting for the other shoe to drop. For some family emergency where I'm supposed to forget everything and come running back. For them to show up again with some new manipulation tactic, some new way to make me feel guilty for protecting myself and my children. Because that's how these cycles work, right? Push away, pull back, push away, pull back. Keep the victim off balance, never knowing if they're about to be punished or rewarded. I've changed my locks twice now. Not because I think they'll break in, but because I needed the psychological security of knowing they couldn't just walk into my space uninvited. The kids think it's because of strangers, and I let them think that. It's easier than explaining that sometimes the people you need protection from are the ones who gave you life. Last month, I saw my cousin Sarah at the grocery store, the first family member I'd encountered since cutting contact. My heart started racing, fight or flight kicking in like I'd spotted a predator. She saw me too, our eyes met across the produce section, and for a moment we just stared at each other. Then she looked away and walked in the opposite direction. The message was clear, I'd been cast out, marked as the troublemaker, the one who destroyed family harmony. They closed ranks, chosen sides, and I wasn't on the winning team. It should have hurt more than it did. Instead, I felt oddly relieved. No fake pleasantries, no awkward small talk, no pretending everything was fine. Just honest acknowledgement that we were strangers now. That evening, I told Dr. Martinez about the encounter. How did that feel? She asked. Like confirmation, I said. Like proof that I made the right choice. Why? I thought about it. Because a loving family member would have approached me. Would have asked how the kids were doing, how I was holding up. Would have tried to bridge the gap, even if they disagreed with my choices. The fact that she walked away tells me everything about how they framed this situation. And how do you think they framed it? I'm the villain who destroyed Christmas over nothing. The dramatic daughter who couldn't handle not being the center of attention. The selfish mother who deprived her children of family relationships over hurt feelings. Do you believe that narrative? No. Not anymore. And I didn't. Because I'd done the work to understand what really happened that Christmas. I'd learned about family systems, about scapegoating, about the difference between healthy conflict and emotional abuse. I'd recognized the patterns that had been there my whole life, the subtle ways I'd been trained to accept less and be grateful for it. Most importantly, I'd watch my children flourish in the absence of that dysfunction. Watch them relax, laugh more freely, express their needs without fear. Watch them learn that their feelings mattered, that their preferences were valid, that love didn't have to be earned through perfect behavior. That was worth more than any family reconciliation built on my silence and submission. But the hardest part wasn't dealing with the family's rejection. It was dealing with the judgment from people outside the situation. The well-meaning friends who urged me to be the bigger person, to let it go for the kids' sake, to remember that family is everything. Life's too short to hold grudges, they'd say, not understanding that this wasn't about grudges. It was about protecting my children from people who saw them as expendable. But they're your parents, others would argue, as if biology trumped behavior. As if genetic connection somehow excused emotional cruelty. The worst was, think about how you'll feel when they're gone. As if the regret would be mine to bear. As if I'd be the one mourning lost opportunities instead of them mourning the daughter and grandchildren they chose to throw away over their own pride. I started limiting who I discussed the situation with. Started recognizing that people who'd never experienced family dysfunction couldn't understand the complexity of cutting contact with toxic relatives. Their advice came from a place of privilege, the privilege of having family members who, despite their flaws, fundamentally loved and respected them. They couldn't imagine parents who would exclude their grandchildren from Christmas, then blame the daughter for being hurt about it. Couldn't fathom family members who would choose maintaining their narrative over repairing the relationship. So I stopped explaining. Started simply saying, it's complicated, and changing the subject. But here's what I wish I could tell everyone who thinks I should just forgive and move on: forgiveness doesn't require reconciliation. I can forgive my mother for being broken, for not knowing how to love healthily, for passing down generations of dysfunction. I can have compassion for whatever made her this way, but forgiveness doesn't mean I have to keep subjecting myself and my children to her brokenness. It doesn't mean I have to accept future harm to prove I've let go of past hurts. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is walk away. Sometimes protecting yourself isn't selfish, it's necessary. Sometimes the family you create is healthier than the family you were born into. That's the lesson I want my children to learn. Not that blood relations are sacred no matter how they treat you, but that they deserve to be loved well. That they have the right to expect kindness, respect, and consideration from the people in their lives. That walking away from toxicity isn't giving up, it's growing up. Last week, Jake asked me if we could have a family reunion with just the three of us. We made a whole day of it, special breakfast, photo albums, homemade certificates declaring us the best small family ever. It was silly and sweet and perfect. I like our family, Emma said as we looked through pictures of our last 2 Christmases. It's not big, but it's cozy. Cozy. Yes, that's exactly what we are. Small but mighty, quiet but content, peaceful in ways I never knew family could be. And if that's all we ever are, if it's just the 3 of us against the world, building traditions and memories and inside jokes that no one else will ever understand, that's enough. More than enough. That's everything. Because sometimes the greatest gift you can give your children isn't a big extended family. Sometimes it's the knowledge that they are worthy of love that doesn't come with conditions, respect that doesn't have to be earned through perfect behavior, acceptance that doesn't depend on how convenient their needs are. Sometimes the greatest gift is simply showing them what healthy love looks like, even if it means walking away from the unhealthy version they might have otherwise inherited. The really twisted part? I started having nightmares about reconciliation. Not about the confrontation, not about the screaming match on my porch, about them coming back. About showing up at my door with flowers and apologies, drawing me back into the cycle before I was strong enough to resist. In the dreams, they'd be so convincing. Mom would cry real tears, Dad would look genuinely remorseful, Ryan would admit he was wrong. And Dream Me would cave, would let them back in, would subject my kids to the same dysfunction all over again because I was too weak to maintain my boundaries. I'd wake up in a cold sweat, heart racing, checking the locks on my doors. Dr. Martinez said this was normal. Your subconscious is processing the fear that you'll revert to old patterns, she explained. The part of you that was trained to prioritize their comfort over your safety is still there, still worried about being too harsh or too unforgiving. But I don't want them back, I protested. Your rational mind doesn't. But there's still a little girl inside you who desperately wants her mommy's love, even if it comes with poison. That little girl almost got us in trouble in April. I was at Target with the kids when my phone buzzed. A Facebook friend request from someone I didn't recognize, Jennifer Martinez. The profile picture was blurry, generic. I almost deleted it automatically, but something made me click on the profile. It was fake. Obvious now that I was looking for it. No real posts, no genuine friends, just a shell account created to spy on me. To see what I was posting about them, what I was saying, how I was doing. The violation felt almost physical. They were watching me, monitoring me, trying to find ammunition for their narrative or weakness they could exploit. It was creepy in a way that made my skin crawl. I blocked the account and changed all my privacy settings, but the damage was done. They weren't respecting my boundaries even in digital space. The no contact I'd established meant nothing to them, just another rule to find ways around. That's when I realized this wasn't over. Maybe it would never be over. Maybe this was just who they were, people who couldn't let go, couldn't accept consequences, couldn't allow me to have peace without them in it. The fake Facebook account was followed by other incidents. A package delivered to my house with my mother's return address, I refused delivery without opening it. My old phone number, which I changed, getting calls from unknown numbers that would hang up when my voicemail played. Emma coming home from school asking why a lady in a car had been watching the playground during recess, trying to wave at her. That last one sent me into full panic mode. I called the school, filed a report with the police, and spent 3 days barely sleeping while I researched security systems and considered whether we needed to move. This feels like stalking, I told Dr. Martinez. Like they're trying to find ways to force contact. It is a form of stalking, she confirmed. It's called hoovering, named after the vacuum cleaner. They're trying to suck you back into the relationship through any means necessary. But why? They made it clear they didn't want us around. Because you took away their control. You stopped playing your assigned role in their family system. Now they're scrambling to restore the balance by pulling you back in. I started documenting everything. Screenshots of the fake account, photos of the refused package, written reports of the school incident. Building a paper trail in case this escalated to the point where I needed legal protection. But the scariest part wasn't their behavior, it was how close I came to responding to it. When that package arrived, my first instinct was to accept it. To see what was inside, what message they were trying to send. When Emma mentioned the lady at the playground, part of me wanted to know if it was really Mom, wanted to understand what she was thinking, what she was planning. The trained people pleaser in me was still there, still whispering that maybe I was being too harsh, that maybe they deserved a chance to explain. It took everything I had to resist that pull. The hooks are still there, I told Dr. Martinez. After everything they've done, part of me still wants to give them what they want. That's not weakness, she said. That's decades of conditioning. You were trained from childhood to prioritize their needs over your own safety. Those neural pathways don't just disappear overnight. She was right, but it was terrifying to realize how fragile my resolve still was. How easily I could slip back into old patterns if I wasn't vigilant. That's when I made the decision to tell Emma and Jake more of the truth. They were old enough now to understand that some adults don't behave safely, that sometimes people who claim to love you can still hurt you. They needed to know why we changed our routines, why I was more careful about who we spent time with, why certain topics made me tense. Remember how we talked about Grandma being broken at loving? I said one evening after Jake had asked again about sending her a card. They both nodded. Well, sometimes when people are broken in that way, they don't respect other people's boundaries. They try to force their way back into lives where they're not welcome. Emma's face grew serious. Like bullies? Yes, exactly like bullies. And just like we've taught you to tell a trusted adult if someone at school is bullying you, I need you to tell me if anyone tries to contact you about Grandma or Grandpa or Uncle Ryan. What kind of contact? Jake asked. If anyone you don't know tries to talk to you about our family. If anyone gives you gifts or letters to bring home. If anyone asks questions about where we live or what we do. If you see anyone watching our house or following us. Their eyes went wide. This was scarier than stranger danger, this was family danger, something most kids never have to worry about. Are we in trouble? Emma whispered. No, sweetheart. You're not in trouble, and you're not in danger. I'm just being extra careful to keep us safe. But even as I said it, I wondered if it was true. Were we safe? How far would they go to reassert control? How long would this surveillance continue? The answer came sooner than I expected. In May, Emma's teacher called me at work. Mrs. Davidson? I'm sorry to bother you, but there's been an incident at school. My heart stopped. Is Emma hurt? No, she's fine. But we had someone come to the office today claiming to be her grandmother, asking to pick her up for a dentist appointment. The world tilted sideways. What did you do? We followed protocol. We asked for ID and checked our authorized pickup list. When her name wasn't there, we explained that only authorized individuals could pick up students. She became quite agitated. Agitated. That was one word for it. She insisted there had been a misunderstanding, that you would want her to pick up Emma. When we offered to call you to confirm, she suddenly remembered she had the appointment time wrong and left. I was already grabbing my keys. I'm coming to get Emma now. We've also filed a report with the principal and contacted our security officer. We take these situations very seriously. 20 minutes later, I was holding my daughter in the school parking lot while she cried into my shoulder. I saw her through the classroom window, Emma sobbed. I knew it was Grandma even though the teacher didn't tell us who it was. She looked so angry, Mom. Like she wanted to hurt someone. This had gone too far. Way too far. That evening, after Jake was in bed and Emma was doing homework, I called the police. Filed a formal complaint about harassment and attempted unauthorized contact with a minor. The officer who took the report was sympathetic but honest. Unless she makes direct threats or actually attempts to take the children, our options are limited, he explained. But having this on record helps if the situation escalates. Escalates. The word hung in the air like a threat. I also called a family lawyer that week. Not because I wanted to take legal action, but because I needed to understand my options. What rights did grandparents have in our state? Could they petition for visitation? What would I need to prove if this went to court? Document everything, the lawyer advised. Keep a log of every incident, every attempt at contact. Save screenshots, keep witness statements. If they're truly harassing you, we can seek a restraining order. A restraining order. Against my own mother. The thought made me sick, but the alternative, living in constant fear that they'd find a way to circumvent my boundaries, was worse. The documentation became my lifeline. Every incident, every sighting, every weird phone call got written down with dates and details. It gave me a sense of control in a situation that felt increasingly chaotic, but it also forced me to confront how abnormal this all was. Normal grandparents who were truly sorry would respect their daughter's need for space. Normal family members would work on their own issues and wait for an invitation back into the relationship. My family was escalating their intrusive behavior instead of reflecting on what had caused the rupture in the first place. In June, the harassment suddenly stopped. No more fake social media accounts, no more drive-bys, no more attempts to contact the kids. Just silence. I should have felt relieved, but instead I felt more anxious. The quiet felt ominous, like the eye of a hurricane. They're regrouping, I told Dr. Martinez. Planning something bigger. Or they finally accepted that you're serious about the boundaries. I wanted to believe that. I really did. But I knew my family too well. They didn't accept defeat, they just changed tactics. The new tactic revealed itself in August. Emma came home from a birthday party with a strange story. One of her classmates, Sophie, had approached her during the party. Sophie said her mom knows your grandma, Emma reported. And her mom said your grandma misses you so much and just wants to apologize. Sophie asked if I wanted her mom to set up a meeting. The manipulation was breathtaking in its sophistication. They'd found a way to use children as messengers, to make their manipulation attempt look like innocent playground communication. I called Sophie's mother immediately. Oh yes, she said cheerfully when I explained the situation. Your mother reached out to me through our mutual friend Linda. She seemed so heartbroken about the misunderstanding between you two. Misunderstanding? There was that word again. She asked if I could help facilitate a reconciliation. As a mother myself, I just couldn't say no. Family is so important. I took a deep breath, trying to keep my voice calm. I appreciate your concern, but this isn't a misunderstanding. This is a deliberately maintained boundary for my family's safety. I need you to understand that any further attempts to facilitate contact will be considered harassment. The silence on the other end was telling. I had no idea it was that serious. It is. And I need you to tell my mother that if she continues to involve other people in her attempts to contact me, I will be forced to take legal action. After I hung up, I realized how far their reach extended. How many mutual acquaintances might be getting sob stories about the unreasonable daughter who won't forgive her poor, heartbroken mother? How many well-meaning people might become unwitting flying monkeys in their campaign to regain access to my life? I started being more selective about Emma and Jake's social activities. More careful about which parents I gave my contact information to. More vigilant about protecting our privacy in ways I'd never had to consider before. It was exhausting. The constant hypervigilance, the need to explain and re-explain boundaries to people who thought they were helping. The way my family's dysfunction rippled out into every aspect of our lives, contaminating even innocent children's birthday parties. But it was also clarifying. Every new manipulation attempt, every escalation, every refusal to respect my clearly stated boundaries just confirmed that I'd made the right choice. Normal, healthy people don't conduct surveillance campaigns against their estranged family members. They don't try to use children as messengers or manipulate strangers into facilitating unwanted contact. They certainly don't show up at elementary schools trying to take children without permission. These weren't the actions of people who were sorry and wanted to make amends. These were the actions of people who were angry about losing control and were determined to regain it by any means necessary. And that Christmas that started all this? The one where we were excluded and I thought it was the worst thing that could happen? It wasn't the worst thing at all. It was the beginning of the best thing. It was the beginning of us. But it was also the beginning of understanding that sometimes, when you break free from toxic systems, those systems don't just let you go quietly. Sometimes they fight back. Sometimes they escalate. Sometimes they show you exactly who they really are by how desperately they try to pull you back into dysfunction. And sometimes, the greatest act of love you can perform is staying strong in the face of that desperation. Protecting your children from people who see them as pawns in their emotional games. Teaching them that their safety and peace matter more than other people's comfort or convenience. We're building something beautiful on the ashes of that old dysfunction. Something clean and honest and safe. Something where love doesn't come with conditions and Christmas doesn't come with performance anxiety. It's worth protecting. Even when the protection requires constant vigilance. Even when it means accepting that some people will never stop trying to tear down what you've built. Because what we've built, this small, mighty family of 3, is everything I never knew I wanted. Everything I never believed I deserved. And I'll guard it with my life.